Could Bennedict Mathurin be the missing piece for Detroit? And although there are issues in the front court and the depth, this is a guy you absolutely have to look at, especially with the reported contract potentially being something around 3 years, $30 million. When you're looking at the three-point percentage, that's the biggest swing stat. First few years in the league, 32%, rose up to 37% on only 0.4 less attempts, and he's always around that 4 number per game. Then he gets up to 34%, which I think is a reasonable spot for him. I think that's where it's all going to eventually even out, especially if he goes up to more attempts a game. And then within this past year, he played for the Pacers, obviously, and then the Clippers. With the Pacers, on about 6 attempts a game, 37% from 3. That is a knockdown shooter. And also a lot of started games. So he's someone who could easily slot in next to Cade Cunningham. You can look at the Clipper stats. 20% from 3. That's something that I look at and I kind of discard and throw out the window. It's a new system. He only played 26 games with them, but only 1 game as a starter. So it's a completely different system, completely different mindset, going to a whole new city in LA. I don't buy the 20% from 3. I think he's a much better shooter than that. We're talking one of those guys who people thought was going to break out into a young star, especially next to Tyrese Halliburton. You've seen some injury concerns. You've seen some shot selection concerns. But if you can get him for a nice little deal, you got to go for it. Looking at his shot chart, corner three-point shooter. That's exactly what we need out of him. 43% from the right corner. And then he puts up a nice volume everywhere else, sitting around 32, 33%. And he doesn't really get inside as much. So he's more of a shot creator from the outside. You don't see him creating from that mid-range area. But the one thing you do see is his ability, kind of like an Ibuka Okori, being able to get to the rim and creating something out of nothing. The funniest thing for me is when you look at his offensive analytics, the most comparable player is Jaden Ivey, who we know he has history with him. Mathurin wanted to be in Detroit. He wanted to be a Piston on draft night. They went with Jaden Ivey, and that stuck with him. Throughout every game he played against Detroit, there was a fire in his eyes. And especially in that Rising Star game against Ivey, Ivey's like, dude, chill out. Mathurin wasn't. So he's a dog. He would fit well into this. Overall, if you kind of look at his player type, I'm not saying he's going to come in, and especially on that contract, he's not going to come in and solve every problem for Detroit. If there's a chance it just doesn't hit, there's a chance he's just an average player. But I think you have to look at the ceiling. So like a Jordan Clarkson, especially in his prime years, look at the scores on this list. You kind of see a Kyle Kuzma, again, Jaden Ivey, but then also you see Montas Buzelis, Paolo Banchero, RJ Barrett, Shaden Sharp. And this is a player for me where he's a little bit hard to rank just because you see that streakiness throughout his career, but you almost have to take that risk because the way this deal gets done is a sign and trade. And in the sign and trade that I would be comfortable doing would be something around Duncan Robinson. Why? Because we have Isaiah Joe, who's going to be that career shooter for us. He's going to have a career year. I am 100% sure of that. And then if you need to get another guard in the rotation, you're going to probably attach Duncan Robinson's contract, which is $14 million expiring. Clippers could take that. They could move it. They could use it. They could keep him. They could do anything they want to do with it. But when you're talking about Mathurin sliding in, he could either be your starting 2 or Isaiah Joe can be your starting 2, and you could have Mathurin come off the bench. It's honestly, it's not a big concern to me what happens at that point. But this is a player that I've been wanting on this team for a little bit, just because of the ability to play next to Cade Cunningham and finding a diamond, because at this cheap of contract, you almost have to take the risk, because what if he hits and becomes one of the premier scorers in the league? I mean, I'm not saying that's a guarantee at all, especially because why hasn't it happened yet? Why aren't other teams absolutely crazy for him? But nothing's going to happen till I believe this Jalen Duren saga is over, because Detroit needs to know what money they're working with. What do you guys think? Is he a player that you would like to see on this team? Peace out.